Welcome to the Beauties podcast, where we talk about everything you need to know about women's sports. From the grassroots to the pros, we got it all. Today on the show, we talk about the LPGA's Hawaii tournament and the NWSL's history-breaking week. Here are your hosts, Addie and Cowie.
Happy Easter, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, the bunny doesn't visit my house because we don't have any kids. So how was your Easter?
The bunny hit up our house like nobody's business.
Yeah, a little 3-year-old tornado running around.
It was like Christmas morning, and all of it was chocolate.
Amazing.
All of it was chocolate, multiple floors. We had a really good morning.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to hear that.
Yeah, really good weekend. And before we get into it, I did have a request. I was coaching this weekend, and the girls, they said they were going to listen to the podcast. So Pembina Valley Hawks, awesome job this weekend. Here's your shout out. Unreal.
Go. Yeah, thanks for being part of the Beauties community, girls.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Crushed it this weekend. So yeah, really good weekend. Got some family time in. It was awesome.
Good. Super happy to hear. Yeah, it's, we had these quote unquote storm of the century that never became a thing.
Became a storm.
Yeah, so that kind of squashed some of I was going to make the trek home, which I know you ventured on the highways and I just chose not to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, stuck around the city and had some nice Easter brunch this morning, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So if this is your first time to the show, a very warm welcome. And if you are returning, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Yes, we appreciate all of you listening, whether you find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, if you follow us on Instagram at Beauty Sports Talk, maybe you find us on TikTok. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back. If you are returning, another day, another episode.
Yeah. And and I feel like I say this every single week, but like, what a week. Like, I feel like it was kind of a drama week. Like there was so many, there was a bit of drama going on. Obviously LPGA back in action with the Lotte Championships, but I felt like the headlines and the stories of, the Challenge Cup, everything that happened there with like the 2 games, 11 minutes and 9 minutes and 3 goals. Like it was nutty.
Yep.
The PWHPA declining the meeting with the PHF, like, oh my God. And then the amount of, so many things. And then there was, we talked a ton last week on the Wnba Draft.
Yes, we did.
And that was that was so well done.
It was very well done. I think you hit it. It was in every way, shape, and form professional.
Yep.
There was some surprises, which is always exciting when it comes to a draft. No one wants to go in there and have the TSN's predictions be all the correct.
Yeah, it can't be boring.
Exactly.
It can't be boring like that. You got to shake her up.
Yeah, so we had a few surprises. Everyone looked top notch. They had outfits on outfits that were just, again, like, super good.
We're talking custom. Like,
oh yeah,
like the shoes were,
yeah.
Like I think Destiny Henderson made the shoes for the draft. Like,
yeah, and people were opening up jackets and had like things, embroidered in specific to them, custom, pins and
it was crazy. But I did because we always talk about our fashion sense.
Yeah,
like what a hoodie are we rocking today,
yeah,
crew?
Exactly.
This might be aging me a bit, but there was a lot of people there that were wearing like the blazer with no shirt underneath. Wow. That's
confidence.
That is confidence. And that seems to be like every time that they panned off to like a different table, different family, it was like, which one of you has the blazer with no shirt underneath? It was like, okay, this is now the trend, I guess.
I guess so. It's not going to be a thing for me ever.
Could you imagine? That's a Beers for Beauties episode. We'll end up like suits with no shirts on. Like, what is happening here? But yeah, I was like, that to get on stage and on TV in front of thousands of people. No shirt. I was just like, that's a new fashion trend for, you don't see that up in Canada too much, I don't think.
No, well, not where we live.
Not
Here.
Not our neck of the woods.
No, but one thing that struck me just with the outfits in general and the style and class that existed during the WNBA draft was how I think the WNBA's culture, it also invites that. Like, they have this super inclusive, own who you are style about them as a league that promotes these women to just be themselves in every way, shape, or form. Like, it was evident to watch on TV.
Yeah, I could, like, even when you saw it progress throughout the year of them like walking into their locker rooms with like just the sickest clothes on. They just have like such an amazing culture and they just look sick.
They do.
They just look unreal.
Agreed.
So one thing too that I laughed at every single time was all of the draftees coming over and meeting up with Holly Rowe there, who's like 4
feet tall. Yeah, she looked very short. I don't think it helped that she was on the floor and they were still on the stage, and most of them are 6-footers in heels.
Oh, so, Engsler came over and I was
like talking to a child.
Yeah, no, that was so funny. But at no surprise, Howard goes first.
No shock.
No surprise to anybody.
No.
Smith goes to Indiana second.
Yeah.
Really no surprise to anybody. Austin goes to Mystics, which is pretty sick, which is great. Engsler to Indiana. And right around that 5th spot, like, was there anybody that you would definitively say won the draft?
I think we have to say that Indiana came out really well in the draft. Also just by default of the fact that they had the most gaps to fill and they had the most picks in the first round.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to deny what they added to their roster. To me, Indiana, and even, through into the second round, like they got Destiny Henderson in the second round.
Yeah.
Adding her to the likes of Lexi Hall, who they took in the 6th spot.
Yeah.
Like they made out to me really, really well.
I would completely agree with that. And I wonder, because you had a lot of really good points on Henderson last week, just on her height and how that would affect the draft, and even her coming off the height of the championship game. Like, it really does play effect into that. And I think they played their cards perfectly right with getting Lexi Hall.
Yeah, I agree.
Picking her 6th.
It's super gritty. Right?
Yeah.
She's got tons of speed.
Yeah.
She has size that Henderson doesn't have as a guard.
Yeah.
It was just a draft of bigs too. Like there is so much talent, and there's so, like, all of these women are, anywhere from averages like 6'1" to 6'5".
Yeah.
And you can tell too that, especially with Indiana, like there is a push for this defensive grit, like taking Emily Engsler. To me, speaks volumes to that. In really, there's that old quote of offense wins games, defense wins championships. And I think they built or took picks that based on defensive ability. Lots of them have great offensive ability as well.
Yeah.
But it was a super defense-driven draft for the Indiana Fever.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I was clearly fangirling on Destiny Henderson. I was
convinced.
I was going to sleep at night knowing she was going to go top 5, and she did not end up there. I think that where she ended up is exactly where she needed to be. Like, I think that that's a perfect team for her, because they need that swag on that team. So I would agree with you in Indiana essentially winning the draft, in my opinion. The one that caught me, and clearly the amount of scouting and, just knowledge of the game with Hollingshed going to Vegas in the first round.
Yeah.
That one to me was like, they've done their research. They know exactly what they want, and they're going to get it in Hollingshed, because she was on nobody's radar. Nobody's radar. And then I found the video online of the GM saying like, that's who we want or whatever. And then they go over like, Becky, you got your girl, right? So they clearly had a very strong strategy in place to get her. And I think that kind of shook everybody. I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Well, and that's what I mean. I love those like shocker surprises.
Yeah.
And I think that was one interesting piece of that draft. How we talked about last week, they invited 12 women to the draft. And, you know, I think everyone's expectation was that was their thoughts of people that were going to go in the first round. And so maybe that's part of that is a COVID strategy of not having as many people and things like that. But it makes you wonder what's going to happen in the future, because that was the only unfortunate part, was because you had, you know, lots of just holding the jersey up without the player.
Right.
Because they weren't in the list of 12 people that got to come to the draft.
Because I also thought it was interesting that, you know, the GMs weren't there. And then that could totally work into the COVID strategy, because like 9 times out of 10, the GM is going up and saying
who they want.
We select so-and-so. And it was the commish the whole time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was, I mean, it was very well done, very professional.
I loved it.
It was fun to watch. But it is just inherently different than what we've experienced in other drafts that we've seen.
Yeah.
And maybe, like we say, maybe that was COVID related. Who
COVID
knows?
strategy. I love how Coach Stately was there.
Yeah,
that
I know.
was seeing a couple of those iconic people still go to the draft was pretty cool. And then obviously some Liberty players went because it was hosted in New York. I thought that was a really nice touch, because then even you know, you see who's going to be drafted to your team, and then you get to meet them right away. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, and last week I had talked about that trophy, and it was Dawn Staley picking up that trophy, not Aaliyah
fact
Boston.
check.
Yeah, it was called the WCBA Coach of the Year or Coaches Award. And they give it out every year seemingly to the one, like Gino's won it lots when I look back in the history of it.
Right.
This big glass ball. Yeah. 'Cause I was like, I feel like it wasn't Aaliyah Boston, but I couldn't picture it last week. So that's just correction of that was Dawn Staley winning that award.
Wow. Yeah. She won everything this year.
She's a winner.
Give it to Coach Staley.
Yeah.
If there's anything, just give it to her.
Yeah.
So I think, super good event. Very well done. And another event, the Lotte Championships that went on in Hawaii.
Yes.
The LPGA starting to make kind of their Southern California, LA rip in their schedule.
Yep.
And this was nice to see, obviously, everybody back playing, because they had a little bit of a break there.
Yeah.
But in Hawaii, the wind was ridiculous.
Yep.
It was no joke. There was one time they were, I think it was Brianne Doe. You could see her shirt. It was just going nuts because of the wind.
Yeah.
And they all just sat there and waited it out. They're like, we cannot shoot in these weather conditions. And it was no give. So Lydia Ko actually won it last year, and she won it at 28 under. Hayu Jun Kim won it this year, 11 under, and like fought for that 11 under.
Yeah. Yeah, and won by 2 strokes. Next in line was 9 under.
Yeah.
And you're right, because there were times, it's funny, you noticed the shirts, like there were times off the tee box, that's where you could really see it. And it's, shirts and skirts and all sorts of things that were just flying around because the wind was relentless.
Kim, like her pants at one point were just like
suction to her legs.
It was insane. And so they talked about a lot, the commentators, the pretty much the entire time were talking about like the wind,
the conditions,
and hole locations. And so when I started looking at the hole locations, and then they were, talking about, okay, well, she's, 5 feet off into in the rough, and then they panned away, and it's like literally a direct, like from the hole right into the water. Like no give on the far side of the hole on the green. And so I'm like, not only are they battling like against ridiculous winds, they were completely gutless with the hole locations this year. I was like, this is insane because even in the first round we saw Danielle Kang and Brooke Henderson.
Right.
Danielle Kang out with a shoulder injury, and then Brooke Henderson an unspecified illness.
Yep.
I think we chatted about, right?
Yep.
So both of them were done, and they had tough first rounds.
Yeah.
But you kind of wonder, like, who would want to play in that? Who like it was it was really intense conditions.
I'm a fair weather golfer.
Yeah.
My game is challenging enough. I don't need to add wind, rain, none of it.
No. How many times is the bevy cart coming around?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm only allowed to buy 2? How fast can you make your 18-hole loop?
Yeah, exactly. Are you only working the 9?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Exactly.
So it was in the final round. I watched like all day.
Mm-hmm.
It was maybe one of the most entertaining rounds I've ever seen because Kim kind of kept jumping from 12 under to 10.
Yep.
And then Shabono, who was right behind her, was 9 to 7. So at one point, they were only one stroke apart.
Yep.
And so they just kept on kind of jumping in and out of one another. So it was literally down to, I'd say, the 17th and the 18th hole where you're like, okay, Kim is going to win this one, right?
Yeah.
But it was back and forth the entire final round. She is so good.
Oh, yeah. No.
And they make it look so effortless. And they had kind of a close up with her and her caddy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this because like that's their work. Like,
Oh, yeah.
right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If I get mad at work, I just like walk away.
Yeah. Can't do that there.
Can't do that golfing. You have to walk the whole thing with them. You have
Yep.
to talk. So that relationship between player and caddy are just
Super important.
It's super important, incredibly unique because you essentially have to be able to have very good, positive conversations, like, and either agree or disagree, and then legit move on. Like
Yep.
you can't hold anything on because you can't be mad the whole course. So
Yeah.
they were going back
amount of
and
trust.
forth. Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of trust would be wild. My dad has had an experience where he got to go and golf Pebble Beach, and had a really cool caddy interaction, and that was one of the things that he had as his like kind of takeaway.
Yeah.
Was it's also a really unique job as a caddy to know that that's your role. That to offer your advice, you've gone and scouted this course and lengths and you understand the player that you're caddying for, but that is also your role.
Yeah.
Is to give your thoughts and then ultimately shut up.
Yeah. And because they were coming up to, and it was a really tough hole. She had to go over a bunker and land on the green, but the green had a really deep slope on the back end of it. And he knew. He knew, okay, well, if you lay up here, then you're going to have more forgiveness. And they pretty much showed the entire conversation on TV. I was like, that is very impressive how they can have really good conversations like that. And so she picked her club. They had the conversation about it. She went and lined up at the ball. And then she was like, you're right. Went back, picked the club that he suggested, and then went back. So I was like,
yeah, it's super cool. It is unique in sports.
It is
a
very unique
interaction that exists in golf.
Yeah. So
Did you see the hula dancing?
I know.
She was super embarrassed. So the winner of this tournament has to, I don't know if they have to per se, but they essentially
It's part of it.
they bring these hula dancers out, and the winner is, positioned between two hula dancers.
Yeah.
And they, do their hula thing, and she was like covering her mouth, all shy, and
Oh, that would be so.
you'd rock it. You can dance. Me?
Get
like
up there.
everyone, let me show you my 2 left feet. Cool.
Yeah. It is.
That's a weird tradition.
That
It's
is
a super weird tradition, and I like part of my soul then says it's a very gendered position. Or
Yeah. Do they?
thing.
Yeah. Do they make?
do they make the men
do
hula
that?
dance when they win?
Yeah.
Regardless, I laughed. It was on Instagram, and I had a good chuckle at it.
Yeah. They showed Lydia Ko getting after it last year too, just trying to, she's like, wait a second, like trying to actually learn. So yeah, super, like, I guess it's tradition. Instead of jumping in the lake,
I guess so.
they hula dance there. So they're off to LA next week. There was also one interesting story. So Brianne Doe, who was ranked over 500, like really far off, made the cut for this tournament, and then just started crushing it. Ends up in the final round with Kim, and golfs the whole round. Had a really rough final round, but they interviewed her saying, like, you're ranked 500th on the LPGA right now. How do you feel about being here? And she's like, I can't think about it any more than step by step by step. She's like, I made it here to the final round, which I never thought I was going to do. Now my whole thing is about LA, playing in LA. And she's like, I just want to play more consistent on the tour. So I was like, 32 years old, literally ranked 500th, and is like, I'm going for it. I'm going all in. So she made it to the final round. Played really good golf for the first three. Her fourth round was not very good. Was just fighting the ball all over the course, but has now earned her spot into LA and now has the opportunity to do it again. So I was like, hey, that's a feel good story.
Yeah, I was gonna say, good news story. I like that.
That's a feel good story, because as we move on to the Challenge Cup, this was a wild week, not just even in the whole grand scheme of the games and how the standings have moved. Well, we have a new number one, but two history-making fastest 3 goals in pretty much back-to-back games.
Yes.
Like, that is unheard of.
Yeah. So I tuned in on, I think that would have been Thursday, regardless, whatever day, the Oil Rain San Diego Wave game on Twitch. And I was there for the start of the game. And it was, I almost texted you and said, like, what am I watching?
What's happening?
What is happening here? So that was the first record to be set this week in 3 goals in 11 minutes. Goaltending was borderline horrendous.
Yeah.
And I'm not a goalie expert. I'm not a soccer expert. But Carly Telford was, I don't know, snoozing for the first 11 minutes of that game. Some weird bounces and things. Like the first goal was a corner. There was a big pile of women in front of the net off of 2 people's faces. Yeah. And then eventually finds the back of the net. Yeah. It was and then you think that's something that's probably going to stand. 3 goals in 11 minutes. And then we've got 2 days later, it's 3 goals in 9 minutes.
You can't make it up. It's just insane. It's just insane, because even going back to the Rain San Diego game, Telford, the commentator
ripped her.
was letting her thoughts be known. Yep. But like even the plays trying to play the ball upfield, like even trying to get the ball up like to anybody, she just was like sloppy. Like there were just sloppy kicks that turned around. They didn't get possession of it and ended up in the back of their net like 3 times in a row. And her positioning on the goal line, it, like that one we watched at the very beginning, it didn't even look like she made an attempt to try to get across. No. Like it was
strange.
It was strange. That's a perfect word, because it was what was happening?
And I can't imagine weird. I can't imagine being one of those San Diego players, because if at the very beginning of the game, San Diego had actually some opportunities, and then what seemingly was a pretty innocent play with a corner, which is always an opportunity to score. Let's not like wash that. And like how defeating that would be. Totally. Because then you watch 2 days later and this, this 3 goals in 9 minutes, and it was an entirely different story. Yeah. Where Orlando's defense was just, North Carolina had all day, and balls that, I don't know, their defenders, and again, the commentators made comments about the defenders not really doing their job. Wasn't on the goalie. They were to me, far more skillful goals that they scored
Yeah.
in that 9-minute span. But odd records. Odd records.
Very. You think about how, like, and we talked last week talking about how many ties there are and things like that. Like, we got our wish.
Yeah,
like lots of goals are being had here. But you're right. Both of the 11-minute one was a lot of goaltending errors, where it feels like the 9-minute one was just like a team was completely sleeping, and the offense showed up and they just took advantage of an opportunity, and like, why not, right?
Yeah.
So. Very, very interesting chain of events that went down there. And something, honestly, in soccer, I've never heard before. I've never heard of 3 goals being scored.
Well,
and
yeah, and that's
like,
like I was saying to you, some of the stats, like 10 shots on goal.
Like
in an entire game, 10
an
shots
entire
on goal.
game. That's
and we've got 3 goals in 9 minutes.
Right. So it, like,
statistically speaking.
It doesn't. It seems, very.
It's not even 9 minutes. It's the first
9 minutes.
9 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
crazy.
Soccer is exciting. The Challenge Cup. The Challenge Cup. Yeah, we are starting to definitely see the strong teams and the weak teams.
Yeah, like OL Reign took the top spot now in the West Division with 13 points, 4 wins and 1 loss. So, and Portland at 10 points. North Carolina is still really impressing me. Like, we talked about how they've made a huge change to their roster this year. 11 points against the defending champions, Washington Spirit. Like, they're just crushing it right now. They're doing great. But yeah, OL Reign takes top spot. In Kansas City, Central is 10 points. So it's moving around. It is getting...
And we don't have much left, right? We basically have next weekend and then moving into that first weekend of May to close out the Challenge Cup.
Right. And then we're right into season.
Yeah.
So not that much left to go. You're right.
Time flies.
That does seem quite quick.
Does.
Whoa.
Does seem quite quick.
Yeah, because reach the semifinals on May 4th. Finals will be played on May 7th.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Fast approaching.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing for, the Reign and Courage to pull off very cool things like that. Everyone's going to be looking to break that record.
Do you think you go into a game thinking like, oh, let's score
let's get after it. Let's
get
do
after
it.
that record?
Yep. I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably. In soccer, and yeah, you just said, because we've been talking so much about stats and like soccer, it seems to be one of those games that's more played on like the positional one touch movement of the ball to create, seams throughout the middle and all these different things. And then all of a sudden now you hear 3 goals in the first 9 minutes. Like, yeah, it just seems crazy.
Crazy.
But you want to know something else crazy?
I would love to.
Come on. PWHPA.
Yeah.
Professional Women's Hockey Player Association declines meeting with the PHF about a collaborative league for women's hockey. And so it's almost like, where do you want to start with this? Because there has been news that has been released about kind of why they declined that meeting. But then it almost leaves more questions than answers.
To me, it's the same questions that we've always had. I'm not shocked. My first comment is that I'm not shocked that the PWHPA made that decision. We've talked about it in past episodes where I really feel like, I think I said it, that they had their list. We've got to understand that the players in the PWHPA created the PWHPA when the CWHL folded on them by shock, which screwed them out of a league, essentially. And so that was their way of controlling the narrative. And I am not shocked that they are not going to engage with the PHF, because the PHF was formerly, before they rebranded, the NWHL. They all had a choice to go to the NWHL. They all had that choice when the CWHL folded. And they chose not to because there's some things within the PHF that a lot of questions have been brought up around, right? In terms of ownership and their engagement with things overseas, just in general, the structure. And I think the players of the PWHPA are doing this for, I've said it before, it's not even about them. Mm-hmm. It's about, I'm not going to cave to anyone else unless this entire list is met. Mm-hmm. Because we need to do it right finally.
Yeah.
Because we've had versions of professional women's hockey leagues that haven't succeeded. So why would I leave and join one that is the same-ish structure of the ones that didn't succeed? I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
Yeah. No, I think I was shocked a little bit in the sense of when they released that statement from Gary Bettman, you kind of felt like something was going on behind the scenes, that they had kind of dueled it out a little bit. And this was kind of like,
yep.
They've dealt with their shit. So now we can talk.
Yeah.
And that's clearly not the case. Mm-mm. So that's where I came from. And I'm like, what? Well, clearly my thoughts were off a little bit in the beginning, because now it's been released that the PWHPA has details on a new league starting January 2023 to April.
Yeah. Yeah. So we saw that on Hockey Night in Canada from Jeff Merrick. And then it was also shared on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so 6-team league in Canada and the US, a very short season from January to April of 2023, which again, that is an odd time from a hockey perspective. We're used to seasons starting in October. Mm-hmm. So that's strange. They did have some details, $35,000 minimum salary, average salary of $55K. There are benefits in there, the 32 game schedule, which in all aspects of my thought process is encouraging. I'll be interested to see what more details there are. You know, $35,000 is a starting point for me.
Right.
I still think there's definitely room. But when you put it in perspective of a 4-month season.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. And that's a minimum. So you think the women that are currently playing in there, that I would assume they would be gauging from the Olympics, like all the Olympians would probably be making $55K in 4 months.
Yeah, or more. Yeah.
Or more, right? Yeah, as an average, right?
An average, yeah.
So that's
getting better.
That's getting better. And then with the expectation of a new name for the league.
Yeah, because it can't be. The Players Association is, I think the PWHPA should always remain in some way, just like the NHLPA.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. That should be their.
Yes, that's their player voice, where they can advocate for themselves. But they need obviously a name, which I am so interested to see what that name is.
I could not agree with you more. What is happening? So there'll be 23 skaters per team as well. So we're looking at 6 full rosters, which the PWHPA as of right now has 5 teams. Yeah. So, and the addition of one more team, and these would be like established teams. Like sometimes there was a little bit of movement within the PWHPA within rosters. This would then be teams, an actual team that would train and practice and everything together. So it would be definitely a different format. So yeah, exciting. Very interested in the time. You're right. I think I said January 23rd before, but I don't. Sometimes I just smash things together and just roll with it. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this.
Yeah.
Are the team names changing? Like you'd think like all the logos would be different. Everything would be different. So it'll be interesting to see. Because it's also fascinating to me that it's like something like this gets launched and then it's like the PHF just is full throttle.
We've seen some things in the PHF with Digit Murphy leaving and push. Yeah, there's some drama.
The PHF has
some
got some
drama.
stuff going on there. There's no question. Digit Murphy, for the people wondering that Cowie was just talking about, has left the Toronto Six and is now with the New York Riveters.
Metropolitan Riveters, yeah.
Yeah. And
she's got her own things.
yeah, some players came out with some very negative things to say about Digit and her time there and her time coaching. And it's very interesting because as soon as she went to the Riveters, they cleaned house and everybody quit.
Yep. Which
So-
speaks volumes.
That's you can't say much more than that. When you walk into a room, everybody leaves.
Yeah,
That's a
yucky.
That's not good. That's not good. And
No.
for a team that has been essentially what I would consider probably the OG
Yep.
of the league, like it's got Madison Packer, Anya Packer, the GM has also not re-signed her contract for next year. There's so much movement and it's so all over the map. And it'd be interesting to see the release of the new PWHPA of their coaching staffs and of their, it's going to be this entire new launch of this huge thing. And if it sticks,
Well, I think too that we have to recognize, I think a lot of people have tiptoed around it. We've tiptoed around it. The best female hockey players in the world are in the PWHPA.
yeah.
And so by nature, we have to assume that is going to be the professional league.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? We could have a lengthy conversation around what the evolution of the PHF looks like in terms of we still need more infrastructure to support a professional league. Because right now, when you're a female hockey player, you play high school, you typically find a post-secondary and play for 4 or 5 years. And then what?
Right.
And right now there's lots of people will go overseas, and I'm speaking to Canadian and US hockey players right now. Lots of people will, pursue something overseas. Some right now would head towards the PHF.
Right.
But we need, if you look at the way that the men's game has been structured, there is all the opportunities.
Yeah.
There are leagues on leagues on leagues on leagues for a male athlete to graduate from high school and play years of junior and then go to university and then go into a semi-pro league or a pro league and eventually find a pathway if that's what's in the cards.
Yeah.
For this to be sustainable, we need more chinks in the ladder.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's been thought about and talked about. It would have had to have been, because obviously to start off what is going to be the junior league of what this pro league is going to be university. That's just the way the path is set up right now. Is play on your team, get scouted to university, then you get drafted to pro.
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of like the WNBA.
Yeah. Yes.
It's exactly like the same.
It is,
right?
very, very much.
And
yeah.
so now we have that where, some guys are playing in the dub when they are still in high school. So they're there definitely is a lot more different things. But the cool part about it would be is like getting to the point where, okay, you're in university, then you're going to get drafted just like you would to pro. But then if you don't go to pro, if you don't get drafted, having these kind of like, I don't know if they would be overseas, but affiliate teams that you can, because there's enough out there to be like, this could become your affiliate league. Okay, if you don't get drafted to one of these 6 teams in the first year or whatever, you can go overseas to Sweden, play for a year, put your name in again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so that's maybe how it grows in the leagues that you're talking about. Cause I agree. It can't just be you get drafted or you don't, and we'll see you later.
Yeah,
it can't be, because the women that didn't get drafted in the WNBA, they're all going overseas. Every single one of them.
Yeah, and then we see them, like AU is another really good example of people who weren't in the WNBA, who had great seasons in AU, Athletes Unlimited, and are now getting an opportunity at a WNBA career.
Totally agree.
And so it'll be very interesting to me to see what the PHF does or how they react. If they just continue to forge ahead, or if they take a hard look in the mirror. Because right now, again, back to the best players in the world live in the PWHPA, is that you're set up to be, if it's done properly, to be a feeder affiliate league of the quote-unquote professional women's league.
Very interesting. Yep.
But you got to swallow your pride.
But that's...
And I'm not sure that from what we've seen that anyone is currently within that organization is willing to do that.
I agree. There's been too much straight up head battle between the two that would be that would be a huge, it would be a step in the right direction for sure. But
because there are players in the PHF today that can compete with the players in the PWHPA.
Absolutely.
There's also players who can't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so having that become a sustainable step between your NCAA or your U Sports career and this new professional league yet to be named makes sense to me, but I'm not making any decision.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting in my basement talking into a microphone.
That's so true. And I'm with you. I cannot wait because the name has to, I don't know if they got it picked already, or, I wonder what the name's going to be. And they did have that conversation about the talks of associating with, NHL teams. I wonder their play, if they are, so say if we're talking about Calgary Flames, I wonder if the Calgary Flames, because they've been a huge advocate for their women's team, even when the Inferno were there, are they going to have the same colors as are they gonna, so that's where it's this is exciting news, it's big news, but it leaves so many questions that need to be answered, because it's essentially just going to be this huge reveal of this.
They do it big.
I hope they do it big.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's probably the reason of the January timeframe is, let's be honest, it's April. And so May, June, July, August, September. If you were going to start in October, you don't get till September to figure your shit out.
Totally.
So, is that the reason that we're just looking at a January through April league? I'll also be interested to see the barns they pick, because I think that's part of the strategy is we know that there's effort that needs to continue to happen to grow the audience. And so putting them in a barn that allows it to fill. Versus a humongo stadium that is it's gonna feel like crickets in there. So strategically, I'll be interested to see what barns they pick. It's got to be professional. They have to be. It can't be a small town rink with, where you're passing by. It has to have this professional flair to it.
Yep.
But it needs to be sized properly to allow them to pack the barn.
Great point. Because they've seen, even when you look at junior teams or, that was one of the things when I played hockey in Warner. It was a small town.
Yep.
We had a wicked arena because every single person in town, it was game day.
Yes.
It was game day. You couldn't find a seat.
Yep.
It was awesome to play in. So you're bang on.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see as this progresses. I mean, it's a good news story that there's going to be a league and just for the efforts of the women in the PWHPA to start to pay off. Like, man, I hope they celebrated.
Oh, totally.
I assume they did.
So here's one thing that I really hope, and I don't know if it is or not, but that there's somebody in the world documenting this. Like, because to see the behind the scenes of what these women have been putting the effort in over the Jana Hefford, that whole list of women that are on the PWHPA board have been grinding, and the ups and the downs and the battles and the conversations, like the building of the league would be such a cool kind of like docu-series on Netflix of just like, this, we built this whole thing from scratch. That would be super cool.
I agree. And I think that they had, there's just, I also love the inherent support that they've had from people. Like, there's a lot of people who've done things pro bono. Right? And I hope that there's in some way, if they get to tell that story, I hope we get to see all of that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I think that's such a huge piece of it. You know, like the law firm that they have is doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because they're making money off of it.
Wow.
Today. And so those good news stories also need to be part of the story that is whatever this new league is going to be.
Yeah, the whole thing. I agree. Like the behind the scenes warriors
it's like
that have been
that Founders golf movie.
You see that? Yeah, the Founders.
Yeah.
Spork was at the thing. The tournament.
I didn't.
Oh, what a beauty. She was there. They all got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure, this year.
Okay, cool.
We're going to have to fact check that 100%, but I'm pretty sure I saw that.
Next week.
I'll fact check myself for everybody.
The last thing I do want to touch on is I watched squash.
I love that you did that.
Okay, so for those of you who are not squash fans or have never watched squash, I'm in the same boat. Not a huge squash follower, but I follow the PSA, Professional Squash Association World Tour on Instagram, and then Squash Canada. And Squash Canada hosted the Canadian Open in Calgary this past week. And insane to me that they basically bring the court. It's this glass court, and they bring it there. It was at Bow Valley Square, which is in downtown Calgary. It's a high-rise office building, and they build a court in the middle of this building. And they have great coverage. Like, it was the accessibility of it. I could watch it either on CBC Gem, or they have a YouTube stream. Super easy to watch. It was the first time that they had hosted the Canadian Open in like 30 years. It was wildly successful. There were 3 Canadians in the semis. One Canadian ended up playing an American. So this Holly Naughton, she's ranked 17th in the world, faced off against an American player, and this Olivia Fichter, who's 11th in the world. It was the athleticism involved in squash made me sweat from my couch.
Oh, I was just going to say, the last time I played squash, I'm pretty sure I blacked out. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
And they were talking about, because Calgary, like the elevation in Calgary makes it even more challenging. So my note to everyone listening is that follow those 2 accounts, Squash Canada and the PSA World Tour, because we have a 17th ranked in the world Canadian, and she's got counterpart. So the other 2 were Nicole Bunyan and Danielle Letourneau or something was her name. We've got incredible talent in this country that no one talks about.
We're talking squash, baby.
So I'm going to continue to follow. I loved it. They have now created a fan in me.
Yeah.
In professional squash. So yeah, it was awesome. It was so fun to watch.
That's cool. I'm definitely going to look into that, because I need to see this court that they built, glass court that they built. That sounds unreal.
YouTube, like time lapse, and you can see it go up. Like, there's escalators on both sides in this office building, and they build a glass court in the middle of. It was so cool. Yeah. Anyways, that's my random thought for the day.
We should add that. We should add a random thought. Random sport.
That might get ugly fast for me. Cowie's fun facts.
That's right. A little button.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was tons of awesome stuff. We've got some fun interviews lined up coming up the pipe here. So, yeah, what a good week. What a
Super good week. Happy Easter to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, if you could take a second to like, follow, subscribe, that would mean a lot. Merch is up. We've been getting tons of hits. So thank you guys so much for looking into that. That's great. So thank you very much. And Cowie, final words.
Final words. Another week of incredible women's sports. And I think lots of interesting things happening. The momentum, we continue to say it, is very evident. So we're excited to cover it. We're excited to have you folks back, letting Addie and I chirp into your ears for an hour every week. So yeah, if this is your first time, thank you for coming. If this is your 22nd episode, we appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a rate and review on the podcast. 5 stars only. And buddy, another week. I appreciate you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you all next week.